Okay. Hi, Dr. Chloe. How are you?
Hello, Doug. Great. I'm doing great. Thank you. How are you?
Doing fine. Thank you. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Nice to have you here. So, you are a doctor with a lot of letters after your name. Can you tell us what the letters mean? CO, certified
So,
osteopath, I think?
osteopath. I'm an
Okay.
osteopath, certified osteopath from France and England. And then the CSTD is a craniosacral therapy diplomate from the Upledger Institute International. That's in America, but it's international because we work we have satellites. The Upledger Institute International has satellites in many different countries. So it's an international organization, which I've been a part of for many years. And the DMQ is the Doctorate of Medical Qigong. And I actually have two doctorates, one from China and one from the United States of America, which is also international because college, the International Institute of Medical Qigong was also international. So I'm international.
I think next you should explain what Qigong is, because a lot of people probably haven't heard of it.
And actually, Qigong is thousands of years old. It so it's Chinese energetic medicine, and it's been pretty much evolving steadily for those years and generations. And it's one of the treasures. It's part of the treasures from China. It's one of the forms of traditional Chinese medicine on the same level as acupuncture and tuina massage, which is like a chiropractic sort of adjustment. But medical qigong, this is what I'm focusing on. I'm pretty much a medical person, always been focusing on uh, the medical aspect of qigong and how we treat with qigong without needles on the same way as acupuncture does. Most people know about acupuncture in this country because it's been mainstream now, but it was not known until the 1960s uh, when President Nixon, who had witnessed a surgery with that, um, with just with needles, with no medicine, was totally impressed and said, we need to bring this medicine in America. But before that, they did not know about acupuncture in America. But today it's part of the mainstream medicine. Well, medical Qigong is also one of the same roots of traditional Chinese medicine. And when I got my doctorate in 2015, there were only 86 of us in America. So it's still not well known. There are more now, but it's still new. And it's based on a practice, like people know about yoga, but it's different than yoga. It's based on a practice that is precisely based on the cultivation of qi. So qi is energy, but energy is everything everywhere. So we want to define qi in which context we're talking about qi, and the context medical qigong, it's the cultivation of energy. Because when we cultivate energy in the right way, um, then we get plenty of it. The energy circulates in the meridians, just like acupuncture. It's the same principle, the same foundation of medicine. It's just that the acupuncturists use needle to modulate, regulate, activate, depending on what the condition is and the need is. Well, we do the same thing with medical qigong, with either a hand or a hands, but mostly with the transmission through the mind, because the foundation of qigong, and qi is energy, gong is the cultivation, is the mind leads the energy. So in order to learn how to use the mind to direct energy, we must first learn the practice, and a valid practice, because there's a lot of people who want to be teaching all kind of things today. But if we want to really have a valid practice where we're able to get to that transmission of qi, where we can actually drive the qi, facilitate the qi, so that the person we treat is able to feel it within themselves and then progressively being able to drive it themselves. So in order for this transmission, because as I said, it's a transmission from thousands of years, and mostly in an oral tradition, because a teacher can teach different students, but not each student is going to receive it the same way and take it to the next level. So it's a transmission, and if it's transmitted properly, then the transmission is valid. And that means it passed the test of time. Because when it passed the test of time, that's empirical evidence. That's science in itself. And we say, what's the difference between Qigong and science? Time. Because over time, Qigong has been proven as valid. And so to have a valid practice, you have to find the roots, the teachers, and the roots of those teachers, and the lineage, what we call the lineage, so that we know that the person that we work with is safe. We know the person that we're going to work with, the medical Qigong doctor, is following a lineage, and we can trust that lineage. So I have chosen my teachers carefully. And but what I wanted to also share about the Qigong practice as a transmission is that it's also meant to be transmitted and to continue to be transmitted, obviously. And in this process, we teach it and we apply it. And it's also relating to the breath. Because what is qi? When you look at qi, what is qi? Well, the qi is the difference between a live body and a dead body. Western medicine study the body, the physical body, the bone, the tendon, the ligaments. But the dead body has that too. But the dead body doesn't have qi anymore. And how do we get to qi? From the first breath to the last breath, the breath. That's qi. So the proper cultivation and the proper transmission of Qigong is ultimately comes back to the energy of the breath.
Your son was a great inspiration for you was he the one that got you involved in Qigong?
Yes, Qigong and CranioSacral as well, and osteopathy. I started with osteopathy.
Well, we've got about 5 minutes, so tell his story if you would, please.
Yes, and actually I want to present you my book because you see on this picture here, so CranioSacralQigong, Pathways to Consciousness Power is the title, and those two hands are actually my hand and my son's hand, Dorian's hand. Because when Dorian was just about 4 years old, he was diagnosed with an incurable illness, muscular dystrophy, Duchenne. And we were told at that point that he wasn't going to be living past 18, teenage years. And the Western medicine pretty much was telling, there's nothing we can do. Sorry, you just have him live a good life. And because there's nothing we can do, and say, I don't believe you. I think there's something we can do, and I'm going to find out. And sure enough, the teachings came, and this is how I came to Qigong and craniosacral osteopathy, biodynamic craniosacral therapy. It's all the same thing, but craniosacral works. But Qigong was really the turning point, because I was able to guide him. The teachers were teaching me and how to guide him, and I was able to guide him so that he could be empowered consciously, because we breathe all the time. Yeah? We've been breathing, we haven't been focusing on the breath until we start talking about it and realizing we actually can have an impact on the breathing. And so since my Dorian was losing the ability from the loss of his muscles, who were degenerating, part of dystrophy. With the Qigong practice, he was actually doing very well. And that's when I realized that, so it's not so much about the muscles, it's about the Qi, and the Qi directing the Qi into the organs and learning how to breathe properly. And that's pretty much what the treasures came for me as his mother and a therapist, desiring to help my son when there was nothing else and nobody could help him. The teachers helped me help him. The right teachers came into our lives, and that's how I was able to help Dorian help himself. So Dorian lived almost double his life expectancy. He got to live to be almost 32. That's his birthday tomorrow, by the way. And yeah, and he graduated from FAU, magna cum laude, at 21, and lived a very independent life. You see, he got to live on his own. Of course, we were supervising, helping, but he lived a normal life, and he was healthy. He didn't have any disease. So we are transforming, transmutating a story, a diagnosis with a prognosis, which we didn't follow. So there's genetic and there's epigenetics, which is how are we going to work with the genetics? Basically, the genetics were there. There was no question. He was in a wheelchair by the time he was 11 years old, but that didn't stop him from living a good life and being a healthy person in his mind and also in his body, because he never developed any illness, you see. He was a healthy man. So that makes you think, what's really most important in life?
Well, it does, and it's amazing that. So without the Qigong practice, he would have died, you think, much sooner than 32 years old?
Oh, I'm convinced about this because I would go regularly and just fine tune him all the time until the very end of his life, where he said, "Mom, I can't get in." He couldn't get into the what we call the regulation ship. I actually coined that word, relationship, which is a relationship with a self-regulation that we're born with. We're all born with this. The body will do it, whether we're aware of it or not. But through Qigong practice, we can actually develop that ability to self-regulate. And he had gained that. But toward the end of his life, because he couldn't swallow anymore, the muscles had gained his, prevented him from, ability to swallow. And so that's pretty much was the end of his life, because he never received a tracheostomy, never, which is unheard of, because most people with muscular dystrophy, Duchenne, which is the worst case scenario, not only don't live past the teenage years, which is true, and they get a tracheostomy so they can be hooked up to a breathing machine that breathes for them. He never got that. He had a non-invasive ventilation support system that which is pressured air, not oxygen, pressured air, like you fill it, pressure, your tire.
Okay,
filling
like
your
a
tire
bicycle
with that
pump.
pressure. That's pretty much it. But it was never oxygen. It was natural ambient air that he would go when he needed extra air. Most of his breathing went through his Qigong practice.
Well, I don't mean to cut you off, but we do have to wind this down. Thank you so much for coming on. My guest is Dr. Cloe Couturier. And hold up the book again, please. Okay. Pathway to Consciousness Power, CranioSacral Qigong, Volume 1. They're going to be a Volume 2?
I'm working on
You're
it.
working on
Volume
it.
3 is already written.
Oh, okay.
But there's a strategy on how I would like to distribute this information to help people understand better what it is.
Okay. Last question. Do you have a website you want to give out?
Of course. And if you want, go directly to CranioSacralQigong.com. It'll take you to the book itself. Or my name, CloeCouturier.com.
Very good. Well, thank you
Thank you
for
so
coming on
much.
the show. This was very interesting, and best of luck
Thank
with the
you.
book and your practice.
Thank you, Doug. Appreciate it.